The Israeli Security Cabinet's approved plans to expand its military offensive in Gaza and take control of the entire Strip. Israel's begun calling up tens of thousands of reservists.
What's different this time is that the Israelis are outright saying that their goal here is not just an absolute victory over Hamas, but it's the entire takeover of the Gaza Strip, seizing the land. This has been something that's been on the thoughts of the right-wing members of Netanyahu's government. Remember, this is the most far-right government in Israel's history, and this is who's managing the war. And time again, there have been coalition members who've been threatening to leave, but Netanyahu kept insisting, making these promises to them that there would be this absolute takeover of Gaza, that they would be acquiring this land. And it's something that the fringe voices within Netanyahu's government were saying, but no one was necessarily believing. But now an Israeli official has confirmed that at last night's security cabinet meeting, they're not just talking about expanding the war, but this was a unanimous decision from all of Netanyahu's government that this is going to be the goal, to take over the Gaza Strip. So there isn't exactly a timeline, and that's because the Israelis are waiting for U.S. President Donald Trump to visit the region. That's going to happen next week. He's visiting multiple places in the Middle East, including here in the Gulf states. Part of this plan that was laid out by the new Israeli Army Chief of Staff is to push all of the Palestinians in Gaza south bit by bit. So they're first going to what they're calling conquer the northern part of Gaza, push them toward the south, go towards the central part, continue to push those Palestinians further south, and then ultimately take all of that land along the way. But you also have people within the government, including the communications minister, Shlomo Karhi, who's saying that this plan that was laid out by the U.S. president months ago, that's been widely condemned, of the voluntary migration of Palestinians, that's been condemned as ethnic cleansing, they want that back into play as well. So remember that at the beginning of the year, the Israeli military said that 2025 was going to be a year of fighting, meaning that this war was not going to let up. Within the last weeks, Ben Gvir has been saying that Israel should bomb food reserves in Gaza, should be completely destroying any sort of warehouses where there is aid. But
a prolonged and expanded war in Gaza is seen as an effort that is not related to security. Security is the utmost foundational principle of Israel. It is above and beyond politics. This war is now seen as political, especially when its goal is being declared as the occupation of Gaza. That is very much settler parlance, and there are a lot of Israelis who are getting very angry when they hear this.
Well, we know that this was a unanimous decision by the Israeli Security Cabinet last night to not only expand their operations within the Gaza Strip, but also to seize the entirety of the Gaza Strip. This is something that members of Netanyahu's right-wing government, the fringe voices, as we previously thought, this was their dream all along, to take over the Gaza Strip. But you have to remember that many of them didn't even leave Netanyahu's government when the ceasefire came into place because they were promised a, quote, absolute takeover of Gaza. So the Israelis are kind of redefining what their war goals here, because clearly after more than a year and a half of fighting, they haven't been able to contain Hamas. They haven't been able to defeat them.
Yeah, there has been a shift, hasn't there? Because in the beginning, it was all about getting the captives back officially. And now, in the last few weeks, we've heard one of the far-right ministers, Bezalel Smotrich, say actually his priority is the land in Gaza. And then a couple days ago, we heard the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu echo that sentiment.
So they're redefining actually what's important to them. And now you have Benjamin Netanyahu with this plan to take over Gaza that the Israeli public is calling the, quote, Netanyahu-Smotrich plan. But just this morning, you have Smotrich who said that it's time that the word occupation is not something that people are afraid of. It's time people start welcoming this kind of rhetoric. So it just goes to show you this sort of shift where before this was something on the far right that essentially Netanyahu was dismissing, saying that this is not going to happen, but this is what's becoming the line of the coalition.
Yeah, and a reminder to viewers that under international law, the Gaza Strip is occupied by Israel, was occupied by Israel even before they had boots on the ground. I mean, we know that the international law is very clear on that.
They're kind of waiting for U.S. President Donald Trump to visit the region so they can get that extra support from him. You have the communications minister, Shlomo Kar'i, saying that along with the approval of these plans, now needs to come also the instillment of the voluntary migration plan of Palestinians, saying they need to kick all of the Palestinians out so that Israel can have this land.
Let's bring in Hind Khudari, our correspondent in Deir al-Balah, that's in the central part of the Gaza Strip. So Hind, I have to ask you, how are Palestinians inside the Strip reacting to this news that Israel is now drafting plans to occupy the entire territory?
There's definitely a state of stress, fear, tension, and anxiety and depression where Palestinians do not know or where they will go or what's going to happen, especially the fact that every time the Israeli forces invaded a part of the Gaza Strip, did a lot of mass killings, there has been mass graves, turned the Palestinian streets and Gazan streets into graveyards, and this is what Palestinians are actually scared from. Also, the fact that they have been arresting a lot of Palestinians every time they invaded a certain area or a neighborhood across the Gaza Strip. But again, Palestinians do not have any options. They do not know where to escape or where to seek refuge. There's the Netzarim corridor splitting the south from the north. There's Mirage access splitting Rafah from Khan Yunis, and there's the buffer zone that is taking a lot of land across the Gaza Strip. But what we also need to know in mind that Palestinians won't really obey the displacement and the evacuation orders that have been issued and ordered by the Israeli army, because we have been seeing the past couple of orders issued by the Israeli army. Palestinians stayed in their houses and refused to go out. And this is what Palestinians are saying. In order to reject this statement and to reject those plans, they will not obey any of Israel's orders. They will not evacuate from a place to another, and they will not leave the north of the Gaza Strip or their houses. And this is the only way where Palestinians are going, and this is the only way they would be able to fight this plan. Palestinians are saying that they will not give up on their land, and they will not give up on any Israeli plan or anything they're trying to implement on the ground. But again, there's a lot of pressures on the Palestinians. There's this 3-month blockade that has been imposed. There's the lack of food, and there's the ongoing airstrikes all over the Gaza Strip every single day.
Hind Khudari reporting from Deir al-Balah. Thanks very much to you and your team.